Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I'm Patrick Daugherty, joined, as always, by Mr. Denny Carter. There's a lot to talk about. Monday Night Football, Zach Wilson derailing the hopes of everyone. Football fans, fantasy managers, football owners, non-sports fans. It was a tough night for the Jets offense. We'll get into that in a second. CJ Stroud looking like a superstar. Kyler Murray finally returning for Week 10. David Montgomery returning for Week 10 and complicating the Lions' backfield. What I have deemed I stole this from Dan Wolken, who writes for USA Today about college football, but the Bijan Robinson Misery Index. We'll get to that. Yes. We'll get to Keaton Mitchell. A lot of ground to cover today, Denny. And that includes Aaron Rodgers. Before the game, people have been pointing out the only time Aaron Rodgers seems to rehab happens to be in front of national television cameras before Jets games. Like, let's go out there and get a couple 75, 80 throws in.
Yeah,
maybe just real nonchalant. This is how I live my life. Wait, you think it's weird?
He wants to show you. He wants to show you how far he can throw it over those mountains, clear over them.
He wants to throw it over the mountains. He wants to maybe do something crazy, Denny. What was he filmed telling a certain opposing player after the game on Monday evening?
Yes, on the verge of his 40th birthday, he went onto the field to talk to Derwin James, the safety for the Chargers. And James said, "When are you going to be back?" And Aaron Rodgers said, quote, "Give me a few weeks." That is a quote. Okay. This is, I'm not lip reading. You can actually hear it on the audio. Give me a few weeks. Now, here's the thing about an Achilles injury is that a real Achilles injury, like an actual tear, is a 10 to 12 month recovery period. Okay. We are 8 weeks from his Achilles injury in week 1 against the Bills, right? So there's something off there. It's either he has found some sort of solution that no one else has ever found who has had an Achilles injury, or maybe it wasn't torn.
Yeah, he got the mRNA? He got the mRNA Achilles replacement. Actually, he's too ashamed to admit that publicly, of course.
Right, but I mean, it could be that. But I'm leaning toward, if he really is back in 3 or 4 weeks, I'm leaning toward he didn't actually rupture the Achilles.
Well, say yeah, 2 things are happening here. Either it was a partial tear of the Achilles tendon, which is apparently not as bad, even though partially tearing your Achilles tendon still sounds awful. Or this is just like crazed nihilism, or not even nihilism. Do you remember at the end of the movie, like True Grit? Or I haven't seen the original. The original is probably better, I'm sure. I saw the Coen Brothers remake where Jeff Bridges at the end, he like rides so hard through the night. I can't remember what he's trying to do. He's like saving that road or something. And he like rides so hard, I think that he dies. And like just uses up like all of his energy. And it's either Aaron Rodgers didn't have a fully ruptured Achilles tendon, or he's just riding his horsey all night. Doesn't really care what happens after the season to his body, and is just proving points to himself, to Pat McAfee,
to the public,
to Brian Gutekunst, to Denny Carter, to the haters writ large.
The haters. He's sure what's going on. Let me tell you something, Aaron. It's working, man. I'm shaking. Every time I see you throwing that ball over the mountains before the game, I'm shaking. So it's working.
No kidding aside here. Say we got 70 to 75% Aaron Rodgers, he'd be twice as good as Zach Wilson, right?
Oh my gosh! Like Garrett Wilson could be a league winner, fantasy league winner. He could be like the wide receiver 1 overall if Aaron Rodgers is able to play like 3 or 4 games this year. I'm talking about during that stretch. Okay. Like he's going to go ballistic, mostly because he's really good. Garrett Wilson's really good. I really like him, long term, short term, whatever. But mostly he has nothing around him. No. Nothing. I mean, Alan Lazard played one of the worst games you'll ever see a professional receiver play last night, and he's their clear cut number 2.
And CJ Uzomah got the final end zone target of his entire life and dropped it. You could see on the look on CJ Uzomah's face, he knew he was never getting targeted in the end zone.
That's it.
Like his career is almost over. The Jets get like 1 end zone target every other week. He happened to get this one, and he horribly dropped it. And you could see the look on his face, like, well, I'm never scoring another professional football touchdown.
That was my chance.
That was my one chance. My window is closing. Garrett Wilson, by the way, I mean, he's good enough. Even with Zach Wilson, every game he's catching like 7 passes for 89 yards. He's incredible. We'll get to the Jets offense in a minute. Let's do the Chargers offense.
Okay.
Justin Herbert has not had a 300-yard game since Mike Williams got injured. Josh Palmer is hurt. Gerald Everett is maybe playing hurt, or maybe he's just Gerald Everett. Keenan Allen hasn't been compiling nearly as much since Mike Williams got hurt. Quentin Johnston is the first-round pick. Is just doing nothing. Oh. Are we worried about Justin Herbert, the Chargers offense? I mean, I guess he's going to stay in the top 12 no matter what. But he's kind of low-key Trevor Lawrencing, but we are not getting the preseason stats we were expecting out of Justin Herbert. No.
And, in a few drafts of mine, important drafts, I went with Justin Herbert because he just kept falling. Like, he just kept falling into, like, the 6th, 7th round. And I was like, okay, I'd be a fool for not taking this guy.
You'd be real.
It does turn out, I will report after looking strongly into it, the entire Chargers offense depended on the health of Mike Williams. Once he's gone, it's joking for them. So yeah, okay. With Mike Williams in the lineup this season, Justin Herbert has averaged 8.3 air yards per attempt. Okay. That's dropped to 7.5 without him. That's not a huge difference, but there is a difference. His downfield passing rate has dropped from 15% to 12% without Mike Williams. So we are seeing, I mean, it's not dramatic. Okay. It's not nearly as dramatic as I thought. In fact, I looked into these numbers before the show and I thought, I'm going to find something here. And I didn't
you thought you were going to have the goods.
Didn't find a ton. I will say the Chargers are a little more not run heavy, but balanced on offense than they were early in the season. And so you combine the lack of downfield throwing with that balance, and you get a guy who has a somewhat decent floor, but virtually no ceiling.
Yeah, just no ceiling. The balance might have a little something to do, not a little, with Austin Eckler finally being healthy too. But yeah, by the way, we forgot the best player in Chargers franchise history is off injured reserve now.
Yeah.
A little guy by the name of Jalen Guyton.
That's right.
He likes to. I'm actually hoping he does make a difference. I have so much Justin Herbert.
Right.
Hoping he makes
Me too. And yeah, so the rest of the receivers. Okay, so last night Josh Palmer was out. I do think Josh Palmer's fine for PPR purposes, wide receiver 3 purposes when he's in there and when he's healthy. Quentin Johnston, who by many measures is the worst receiver in the NFL, ran a full route share against the Jets. He was targeted, Pat, on 9% of his routes against the Jets. Jalen Guyton is getting ramped up. Maybe he ran almost 70% of the routes against the Jets.
Did he really?
Yeah. Didn't see any downfield looks. So that would be cool. I think that's our one possible saving grace here for Justin Herbert is if Jalen Guyton can get going as a deep threat.
Because we're not saying Jalen Guyton's going to have fantasy value either. At least I'm not saying that. I don't think you're saying that. We're saying Jalen Guyton serves a very valuable role as a field stretcher, makes the defense defend the Chargers offense in much different ways. And he's had a lot of injuries since he first successfully executed that role.
Yeah.
But if he could be like the normal Jalen Guyton, I'm not even going to be ranking him ever in fantasy.
Right.
But the hope would be that he's someone who changes the way defenses have to defend Justin Herbert. And that's probably coping and wish casting.
It is a little bit, but he at least could give Justin Herbert a chance to get some chunk gains. We're not seeing this offense have chunk gains. Like, I'm not talking about 80-yard pass. I'm just give us like a 25-yard gain once in a while. Please. Just what Pat's family's starving.
I have Justin Herbert in my distance scoring league. I wish I were kidding.
That's funny. That's funny. That distance scoring league, the Chargers literally can't score outside of 4 yards.
No, they really, 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 really cannot. It's so bad. Mike Williams was our only hope, and even then, the play wasn't really that great. Hopefully Mike Williams wins a bunch of jump balls this year.
Yeah, right.
And, he kind of was before he got injured.
He was good. Yeah,
Herbert. To put my bow on it, he's not going to fall outside the top 12 just because if you look at quarterback, it's really not even possible for a player as talented as Justin Herbert to fall outside the top 12. But I think fantasy managers have probably already adjusted their expectations, and hard to see things really truly changing. It's just not going to be that explosive of an offense. The Jets have explosive players, Denny.
Yeah.
They can't make any big plays, though. I mean, Zach Wilson kind of like fool you for like one half every other week. There was no fooling last night. Nothing whatsoever to cling to. And maybe listeners don't even need to hear this conversation again, but what's the hope for Breece Hall I'll try to focus this a little more. Garrett Wilson is at least producing like low end wide receiver 2 numbers. Breece Hall is mostly producing RB2 numbers every week, but realistically, Breece Hall is the RB what in this offense, where it's just so dire, so low upside.
Right. So you're asking the RB what in fantasy?
Yeah, it's like on an average week, you would say Breece Hall is the RB what feels right to you. It could be higher than I expect. It could maybe be a little lower than I expect.
Yeah, I mean, I would go with something around like 12 or 13.
That might almost be still a little on the low end, just to be honest. And I don't really know where I didn't frame this very well.
Because here's the thing, like he's pretty game script dependent, and that's that's not a shock, especially in a dysfunctional offense. But in the Jets' 4 wins, he's averaging almost 18 touches per game. In the losses, he's averaging 11 touches per game. Wow. I will say there's this weird thing going on, Pat, where the Jets over their past 3 games are 5% over their expected drop back rate. So I'm a big fan. Hey, this is good. You're being aggressive. You're throwing it. It seems like a bad idea with Zach Wilson under center. I feel like that should be closer to 0 or maybe even negative. Get under that expected drop back rate.
It's so bad where they honestly should probably involve Dalvin Cook more, even not at the expense of Breece Hall, but at the expense of Zach Wilson. Dalvin Cook shouldn't steal any touches from Breece Hall.
Yeah, right.
I'm saying this knowing that Dalvin Cook is, by the metrics, by the eye test, one of the most washed players in the entire NFL. And I feel like even his touches would be better than whatever it is Zach Wilson is doing. I can't watch any more of that. Can't do it. Can't do it, Denny.
The fact that this team did not look into Josh Dobbs is actually unbelievable.
It is. They did, though. They already looked into Josh Dobbs when they signed Trevor Siemian. So just play him. Like, there's no way he's worse. There's just actually no way.
No, I actually don't believe that that's possible.
Tim Boyle might be worse. Tim Boyle is also on the roster. He might actually be worse. I'll give him that.
Zach Wilson, but Zach Wilson actually showed something for a couple games there. What happened there? What happened?
Yeah, that was like the classic like fall summer. In the spring, we're like, wow, yeah, it's finally warm.
Yeah, and
then it just gets cold again for 4 more weeks.
And I mean, he looked confident. His footwork. Look, I don't know anything about. Yes, I believe he did against the Chiefs on Sunday night a few weeks back. He looked confident, and I don't know anything about quarterback footwork. Okay, like I couldn't show you how to do it. All I know is that when I see Zach Wilson's footwork, I know that's not the way it's supposed to be done.
No,
okay,
no.
That guy's all over the place. I have no idea. People talk about passing platforms. His platform is messed up, from get-go. Like, I don't understand what's going on with that guy's feet.
He looked comfortable in Sunday. That was just NBC's industry-leading high-definition cameras making him look comfortable.
Whatever it was, hey, thank you, because that really showed me what I needed to see.
Do you think, to end this conversation, do you think he actually will get benched, or is Robert Saleh just too far down the rabbit hole? Like,
no, he's Zach pilled, and I mean, so reporters, New York reporters are a different breed, obviously, a little more
quote built different,
hard scrabble. I think they would actually melt Arthur Smith if one of them got a job in Atlanta. But so after every Jets game, they ask Robert Saleh to apologize for starting Zach Wilson, and
they really do.
They're like, "Do it, say you made a mistake, do it, really say it right now." And he's like, "No, he's fine. Actually, I love him. Actually, he's playing great. He could." But after this one, he goes, "I will not say that this was the worst game of Zach Wilson's career."
Wow.
What's going on?
I believe that's called damning with faint praise. Yeah, the New York media, so they'll start off something, they'll act like so nonchalant or casual about it. They're like, coach, the family speaking to you? Be like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, can they look at you in the eye because you're still starting Zach Wilson? And I'm like, because so at first, I don't think that's a respectful way to frame the question, but yes, there's looking at me. They believe in Zach. I believe in Zach. This whole locker room believes in Zach. I don't know what you're talking about.
I do think that the Giants and Jets really need to evaluate their coaches and quarterbacks more carefully to determine who can handle the scrutiny, because it's a different kind of scrutiny.
It is. The Dimesman couldn't do it.
No, he never had a chance. Come on.
Eli was so like slacker god, like came of age in the late 90s, early 2000s, that Eli just couldn't get to him. He just didn't care. And I guess he was already probably really rich by that point too. He was like, guys, I'm already rich. You know what my brother is? You know what my dad is? Like,
my dad, yeah.
You're not gonna really rattle me here. And it worked for him. I think Daniel Jones might have been a rich kid. They need to get some rich kids in there, and they need to get some like slacker gods in there, and they can handle the pressure.
No, the rich kids aren't working because Zach Wilson's not working, and Daniel Jones didn't work.
Yeah, true. Wow.
I think they need slacker gods.
Yeah, they need a slacker god. They do need a news. Who's the guy? Kyle Mooney. They need that old SNL guy and NBC synergy. Kyle Mooney should be the next quarterback of the New York Jets.
Yeah.
If you don't know who he is, look him up.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this. All eyes will be on East Rutherford Sunday night. You don't want to miss a matchup between stars Sauce Gardner and Devonta Adams as the Raiders travel east to face the New York Jets. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern only on NBC and Peacock. And don't forget, find all your favorite NBC sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. Probably should have realized that the Jets were on Sunday Night Football this week before we talked about them like that.
They're really good. The
good news is there will be a very close game. Neither one of these teams are blowing each other out.
No, probably not. But the Raiders have that dog, and I'm actually interested in watching the newly dog-infused Raiders.
I am. We're going to talk about the dog-infused Raiders and just say, I think, by the way, I think the Jets are probably still more likely to blow out the Raiders than vice versa.
Wow. Really?
That Jets defense, look what they did to Justin Herbert.
The Jets defense is really good. Yes, that's true.
It's kind of scary what they might do to Aiden O'Connell in his third career start. We'll get to Aiden O'Connell in a minute. We'll stick with We'll switch to CJ Stroud, Denny. One of the best starts in NFL history. The most passing yards ever by a rookie, 470. He became only the third player in league history with 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And that's in any season, rookie or otherwise. Just totally diced the pass funnel, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who now look like even more of a pass funnel. The whole data is going to be screwed up the rest of the year because of what happened on Sunday. CJ Stroud started the year hot, then was in a fairly extended slump. They were pretty much turtled on offense, like way too much running, way too many touches to ineffective, non-explosive running backs. They at least adjusted the game plan against the Bucs. We don't really know if they'll stick with that. I mean, it was such a good performance. I think even like the Texans are like, okay, wow, we probably need to adjust our priors here on how we call and coordinate this offense.
Yeah.
But what are realistic expectations for a player? It's a little extreme to say he's been up and down, but he's been really up at some points of the season and then like a little rookie-ish the rest of the year. What is realistic? Is he a top 12 quarterback rest of the season? Let's start there, CJ Stroud.
I mean, it really does depend on how the Texans and Bobby Sloak, the offensive coordinator, how they play it from here. If they continue being aggressive and pass first, I feel pretty confident in saying that Stroud is a top 12 fantasy quarterback for the rest of the season. If they go back to their turtle shelling ways from the past month before this blow up game against Tampa, then no, you're talking about maybe top 20. Okay. Like overall, just to give you an idea of the difference in approach in week 9 for the Texans, they were 9% over their expected drop back rate against the Bucs. That comes off of games of negative 12%, negative 9%, negative 4%. Okay. So they went super run heavy for a while there.
That negative 12% was against the Panthers, by the way, who stink.
That was a game that the Texans were desperately trying not to lose. The Texans probably, I mean, you look at the Texans versus Panthers. Overall, the Texans probably should have won that game by 3 touchdowns if they had done what they should have done and let Stroud cook, right? And they didn't. And then I had to hear about it from Panthers fans. So I appreciate Bobby Slug throwing me under the bus there.
So I think they were afraid to show up Bryce Young. Like, CJ, listen, everyone knows you're 3 times as good as Bryce Young and should have been the number 1 overall pick. And the young hive, they're in shambles, so on and so. Just don't embarrass the kid, all right? And then he went out and accidentally lost. Yeah,
he was terrible.
Yeah.
Honestly,
it was real bad.
But okay, and you're right. And so I actually do think that the bad play of the Texans running backs of Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce, and Pierce has been abominable.
It's Joker.
Like really bad, like one of the worst in the league as far as efficiency goes. Because of their play, I actually think that the Texans are likely to step on the gas a little bit and get Stroud going week after week. This week against the Bengals, they're playing basically the best run defense in the league, or it depends on how you measure it, but top 3 at worst, right? They're not going to run it. Okay. So we have 40 dropbacks for CJ Stroud coming up. Whether he can slice and dice the Bengals like he did the Bucks, I don't know. But, I do think that we could see pass heavy stuff coming up.
It's a really, really good Bengals defense. But even if they wanted to establish, like you said, really good run defense, they're touchdown underdogs. They're on the road. The game total is nearing 50. Mm-hmm. Everything about this environment says they're going to have to throw, even if they didn't want to. And I know football coaches aren't fantasy managers, and football, they're like so obsessed with like game by game plans. Like, listen, instead of doing all the stuff that worked last week and playing everyone's strengths, we're going to do something a lot different this week. You might question it. I'll just be honest. Even the men in this room, you might question it. And they're all like, yeah, we probably should just not do that. We should just throw a lot.
Right.
And they're going to have to do that though this week. They're going to have to throw a quote metric ton against the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think you're right. I think that's the clean family version. Yes. I do. Yes. Right. I do think it is funny when coaches are like, we can't score 40 points every week. Okay.
Yeah, no, I know.
We have to try not to score 40 points every week. Also, can we talk about the fact that the Texans, because of Kaimi Fairbairn's injury in that game against the Bucks, the Texans had to be our analytics kings. They had to. They had no choice. They had to go for 4th down multiple times in the red zone. And hey, they turned into touchdowns.
They scored. They had a literally historic performance.
They turned it. Amazing what happens. Also, I turned on the sports media today and didn't hear anything about that situation, about the Texans becoming super aggressive analytics freaks and scoring 100 points. Didn't hear it. I don't know why.
Yeah, what a surprise. Yeah, even analytics people obsessively focus on when the analytics don't work.
Right.
And then when they do work, it's so obvious that it was like a good decision that no one talks about it.
We got one. It worked one time.
We did get one. The analytics worked once. And just real quick to beat a dead horse, talking about like we can't score 40 every week. Like Bill Belichick changed game plans one time as Giants defensive coordinator in the 80s. And then since it's been the nonstop veneration of the game plan since then. Like, it's got to be totally different every week. It doesn't matter what it is. Like someone's like, we have Patrick Mahomes, coach. I don't think it really needs to be that. It doesn't matter. It's got to be different every week, no matter what.
I feel almost bad saying this, but what you're saying and what I'm saying is that these coaches don't have to like not shower for 4 days. No. And like, you don't eat and you drink 14 pots of coffee a day. And that's unnecessary. You could do what we're saying and just go home to your families and have a nice dinner and get to bed by 10:30 p.m. Okay. After watching Friends or something. Right. So, that it can be that easy. CJ Stroud can do this. We're going to do that again.
Let's just keep doing that. By the way, the avatar of the veneration of the game plan era, of course, is Arthur Smith. And let's just get to Arthur Smith right now then. Where one of his game plans, Denny, is to get the number 8 overall pick off the ball. And like he's like Steph Curry, like running around like, listen, we're not going to get Steph shots this game. We want the defense to be crashing in on Steph and get everyone else the ball. Sure, I know that Bruce Bowen is one of the other players. I'm trying to think of like defensive specialists. I'm trying to get Dylan Brooks the ball. Is he even a defensive specialist? Who's the psycho guy?
Yeah, well,
he's punching everyone.
I think
Dylan Brooks, right? Yeah,
but he's a really bad defensive specialist.
Yeah, he is. And he's not good. He's not like 90s brick wall defensive specialist.
Yes.
But yeah, Bijan. the game plan. And so Arthur Smith loves individual game plans, but then somehow every week each individual game plan involves not getting Bijan the ball.
Yeah.
So he has like week to week game plan. They always somehow can't give him the ball. Too valuable off the ball. And just break down Arthur Smith's comments, break down my misery, the misery of everyone in Fantasy Nation.
Yeah, the misery index is about to snap off. Okay, like it's the little what do you call this thing? What do you call the little
what?
That thing that
Pendulum?
measures that anyway.
The metronome?
No. All right. So here's what Arthur Smith said today. Or actually on Monday, he said Robinson played a lot of snaps against Minnesota, and sometimes his impact away from the ball can open things up for any rookie. The seasons are long. You're going to have ebbs and flows. We'll see how the second half of the season goes, but he's been a huge part of our offense, and he'll continue to be. First of all, that's not true.
No, sorry, at least he thought to lie about that.
It's not true.
That's a good sign, at least, that he thought to lie about it, but it's not true.
It's not. He has not been part of your offense. And I actually did, before the show, I decided to look very closely at whether Bijan has been good. And he actually has been. No, he actually has been.
Thank God.
He has been. I looked with a critical eye at every possible measurement of his performance, and they're all very good. So.
You were born, of course, for the take that, guys, listen, he hasn't even been good. He hasn't even been good. I'm sorry.
You have no idea how much I wanted that take.
I know you quite well.
I wanted it so bad. I was salivating.
Quiet. Your whole family. Get out. They come into like your wife's leaving for work, the kids are leaving for school. Out. Dad, you never just said out before.
Listen,
out.
I wanted, you have no clue how much I wanted to defend Arthur Smith on this and say he's right. He's right.
Arthur Smith did nothing wrong.
Oh my God, I wanted it, but
Arthur Smith innocent.
Okay, sorry. I'm completely off track, but he's been good. And
Bijan has been good, not Art Smith.
Bijan has been good. I do think that there's a chance that all of this pressure will eventually force Arthur Smith to use Robinson in high leverage situations like inside the 10. Here's the hoping.
You can see him cracking. You actually can see him cracking in real time. He's tried to remain brave and defiant. The second he showed up without a mustache, real big trouble in Little China or whatever, the phrase, like real bad sign for Art Smith and his wall of defiance. You don't cut that mustache off if you're not starting to feel the heat about, oh man, maybe I need to give him at least one goal line carry. The second, that was the first crack in the facade. We'll see.
You're right. You're actually right.
I feel like that's analytics that actually is true. Whoa, I was not expecting that. For him to shave that mustache. I'm going to up him up 2 spots in the rankings this week. Bijan.
It's bad news for Algier.
It is. Algier in shambles. They shaved the mustache. But Algier, though, five touches, negative 13 yards, and they still let him, quote, get the hot hand in the second half. So I think maybe that was Art's last stand. That, so at halftime, he's staring in the mirror. He's like, the mustache is coming back. I don't care what anyone says. It's coming back. This is my final shave this morning. I'm going out there. I'm giving Tyler Algier the rock. He doesn't even remember the second half. All he remembers is looking up at the scoreboard and seeing that Josh Dobbs just beat him. And then maybe he's a changed man after that. And the transformation begins this week. I think we've solved this. And it's all
I think we have. Maybe the mustache was keeping him from establishing it with Bijan, but
it was.
Algier has 10 rushes inside the 10. Bijan has 2 this year. And Jonnu Smith, I can't emphasize this enough. Jonnu Smith saw a goal line carry last week.
He did. Real quick, what were the stats that said Bijan's been good? Can you give those to me, please? What were they?
If you're in a rush yards after contact per attempt league, he's doing great.
He's cooking.
Okay, sweetie, he's doing so good.
You don't even understand. You call your family back into the office. It's guys, I'm sorry about that. I know that was out of character.
Yeah.
But here are the rush yards over expected per attempt. For Bijan.
Also missed tackles forced. You get 1 point per missed tackle forced. He's great. Top 6, and he's not even seeing the ball that often. So it's good stuff. I mean, if they give him the ball more, he could be really good for fantasy.
But I think the whole nation has become the New York media with Arthur Smith. By the way, we said he would wilt. He is wilting under the pressure of the entire country suddenly becoming. I can't think of it like a famously adversarial.
I mean, we're talking about the press with Nixon at this point.
Yes, or the press with the Knicks. I feel like the New York Knicks have always had them up. So you guys suck tonight.
Yeah.
And Pat Riley would be like, we won.
Any plans to not suck so much, Pat?
We just finished the season 55-27.
Right. We won by 19 tonight. Is that not good?
Anyways, we're all Dan Iasola. Is that one of them? I can't remember.
I think
Frank Isola. I can't remember. Anyways, Arthur Smith, give him the ball. Kyler Murray, Denny. Bijan Robinson has been a saga. You think Bijan's been a saga? Kyler Murray has been a saga where almost 2 straight months the Cardinals like, hey man, I don't know. He might play. He might come back. We might activate him. Yeah, it's Frank Isola, by the way. I thought it was. He loves to. You guys were terrible tonight. Do you care to apologize for that? And he's a very adversarial New York media member. But Kyler Murray, at long last, he's finally playing. Clayton Tune was thrown to the Wolves. He was devoured. The Cardinals had their fewest offensive yards since 1955. When, again, I cannot emphasize enough. I made this point to Kyle. The last time the Cardinals had this few yards, even Zoomers, remember, the Arizona Cardinals played in St. Louis. They were the St. Louis Cardinals. When they gained fewer yards than they did on Sunday, it was when they were the Chicago Cardinals in the 1950s. And most people do not even know the Chicago Cardinals existed. That's how bad Clayton Tune was. Kyler Murray's finally back. What are realistic expectations? Marquise Brown kept the floor kind of intact all year. 0 ceiling. Trey McBride has become kind of a floor-based tight end. Mm-hmm. We'll see if there's some ceiling there. We'll see if Michael Wilson can come back from injury, maybe become relevant. What is realistic for Kyler Murray coming off this torn ACL?
I think there's probably a wide range of outcomes, because if he doesn't run the way we're used to him running, then that'll be a problem for his fantasy value.
And he's not going to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the likelihood is that, he's not going to be sprinting around, extending plays for 15 minutes at a time. And so what I think his main function will be for fantasy purposes is not necessarily to flock to the waiver wire and get him and start him. It's more to distribute and to have a viable offense that can sustain drives, which we didn't see last week. And honestly, Josh Dobbs, great story. Love Josh Dobbs. I am #1 Josh Dobbs fan on earth. Because I love the Vikings, as people know on Twitter, and please stop making fun of me.
All Denny said was they didn't need to have a seance after Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles once.
It's it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to wear the T-shirt of Kirk Cousins.
I thought it was a little weird. This happens in baseball occasionally, where someone will need Tommy John surgery, and then they have a funeral, and the guy's like, "I'm gonna be back next year." It's fine. Not in a coffin right now. And there was similar vibes with Kirk Cousins.
I'm right here.
Yeah, I know. I'm quite literally right here. I'm still going to charity events and stuff. I'm on the headset.
Right. I'm going to travel with you guys. Is that okay?
It's totally fine. Yeah. But we digress.
Anyway, so I think that Kyler will distribute. I think McBride. I know you got really excited about McBride. You started him. It was bad. Don't worry about it. Keep starting them. Marquise Brown is going to be in the regression files because, man, he's eating up those prayer yards. Okay, nobody likes prayer yards the way Hollywood Brown does. So I think that could come around for him. I guess Michael Wilson might be a fantasy viable guy in deeper leagues if Kyler is all the way back.
And not to say not to make a point I've made before, but I am going to literally make a point I've made before. I feel like the most underplayed storyline of the entire Cardinal season is going to be how much of the horizontal raid was Cliff, and how much of it was Kyler Murray. Where I feel like we're finally just now going to really see what kind of quarterback Kyler Murray is. And because he's someone like Daniel Jones, always rates well as a deep thrower. He seems to enjoy throwing deep more than Daniel Jones does. I would say he's definitely better at it than Daniel Jones is, but it just, for whatever reason, would always disappear from their offense. And kind of like with Justin Herbert in LA, we're going to find out how much of this was the offensive coordinator and how much of it is just because this is how the quarterback plays, especially when he's under pressure, when the going gets tough, etc. That is what I am most fascinated to see from the second half of the Cardinals season is what kind of quarterback is Kyler Murray really? And he was probably still get an inconclusive answer, I guess, because he's coming back from reconstructive knee surgery. They are a totally doomed team who seem like they really would prefer if they had the choice to lose out than to make any sort of like late season, like face-saving run. But that's what I'm really interested to see with the Cardinals is Kyler Murray still is going to be horizontal Kyler, or that now that Cliff Kingsbury's like back with USC or something, if we're finally going to get the Kyler Murray we thought we were getting when he was the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. I don't know, like if it's going to take like a ramp up period for him to feel confident, like stepping into the throws, like things like of that nature. I don't know, but it is probably great news for McBride and Brown.
Hard to see how it's anything but uniformly positive for the Cardinals pass catchers. Not uniformly positive for Jahmyr Gibbs, coming off almost a 200 yards from scrimmage effort, is the return of David Montgomery for Week 10. I don't remember how I debated this with you or Kyle, where I don't think it's just as simple as David Montgomery coming back and just immediately reassuming that role. Like I think Dan Campbell is a versatile, adaptable enough coach that like it's not like he's going to forget what he saw from Jahmyr Gibbs last week. And I think that even though he clearly loves David Montgomery, clearly loves that role, I think Dan Campbell maybe could surprise us a little, where Jahmyr Gibbs is not dialed back as much as expected, or is that quote cope? Is that wishful thinking? What are you expecting from David Montgomery coming back in Week 10, Denny?
It's typical that you're coping and crying about Gibbs, but and I would encourage you to keep coping and keep crying. I do think that there's a good chance that Gibbs eats into that RB1 role a little bit because he showed what he can do. I refuse. I do think Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator in Detroit, I think they're very smart guys. Like they're not just gonna like stick it to the rookie just because the veteran is back. So basically, what we had before before the injury, before David Montgomery's injury, was a 55-25 backfield split as far as carries go. And then some went to Craig Reynolds, some went to other guys. So I think that could inch a little closer there. Maybe Gibbs gets 35% of the carries, something like that, instead of 25%. And we have to remember that this Lions team definitely doesn't want to be pass heavy, doesn't even really want to be balanced. The Lions are 22nd in pass rate over expected. They've been over their expected dropback rate just 2 times this whole season. Oh. So when they can establish it, they're going to establish it as hard as anybody in the league, including the teams like the Bears. Okay. Like that's what we're talking about. So I do think that kind of volume, 35% of, 40 carries starts to look okay, and Gibbs can, get a little bit of the targets, a little bit of the pass game action out of the backfield. So, I think that he will be used more than he was early in the season. I will say he's going to lose out likely on all of the goal line stuff.
I don't see any reason why and maybe not even any reason he should get the goal line stuff. I'm sure Jahmyr Gibbs will be an explosive, strong goal line back because he can get skinny. He can hit the hole so quickly. But I would maybe actually even agree with the coaching decision to like not expose Jahmyr Gibbs to those kind of hits. And that really is what David Montgomery's there for. Like, listen, just let me get battered at the goal line. Like, I know touchdowns are cool, but we don't want you to get hurt, blah, 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 blah. But if you said it's 55-25 before, I think what I think a pretty realistic outcome would be that inching down ever so slightly for David Montgomery, say to 50, but then Jahmyr Gibbs' higher carry share, like staying higher, more like 40 than 25, maybe even like 45. And I don't think there's any way he's going back to the bad old days of what was going on before David Montgomery got injured. And that David Montgomery's role might stay like pretty robust, but I don't see how that genie goes back in the bottle afterward. And you said they want to remain run heavy, especially on the road. They clearly just don't trust Jared Goff. Jared Goff was not impressive even in that Raiders beatdown.
No.
I do think it's going to stay like extremely run heavy, especially for road games like this week against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be games going forward where Montgomery scores 20 fantasy points, 20 PPR points, and Gibbs approaches 20 PPR points. Like you will see that. You
will see that? No, please. Who scores more points the rest of the season, Denny? Both stay healthy. Who has more PPR points, Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan Robinson? Not asking about the Lions backfield. Oh. Jahmyr versus Bijan Robinson, straight up. Who scores more fantasy points the rest of the season?
Gibbs.
Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery then?
Montgomery, because he gets all the goal line work.
Yeah, he will never be unowned. It's fine. I'm not even owned anymore. I kind of like it.
You've come to become accustomed to it. Yeah,
I have come to identify with my captor. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we love it.
We do love the Stockholm syndrome. Keaton Mitchell is the waiver wire ad of the week for the Ravens. Mm-hmm. Entered week 9 with 1 touch all season. Had only 9 carries against the Seahawks. It was a 37-3 beatdown as well, but he turned those 9 carries into 138 yards and a touchdown. That was a 40-yard touchdown. Mm-hmm. He had a 60-yard run. Undrafted rookie, where all year is kind of rumored, like, man, they might get Keaton Mitchell involved. They need this lightning element in their backfield. He provided that on Sunday. The game was not over either when he got his work, but it's a really great game. But now it's also, they're going into a game against the Browns, super elite defense. I believe even with these 2 really good teams, the total is well under 40. It is 37.5, actually. Is Keaton Mitchell like a classic? Maybe we're happy we got him off waivers, but we can't use him this week. What are realistic expectations? So on and so forth, Denny.
Yeah, well, I do think it's interesting that Mitchell, Justice Hill, and Gus Edwards each saw 4 carries in the first half of that game against Seattle. It's a little bit hard to suss out exactly what was happening with the Ravens backfield because it was such a blowout of the Seahawks and so early on. Like it didn't turn into a blowout in the fourth quarter. It turned into a blowout in the first quarter.
It did.
Okay. So that's a little tough. They basically gave Gus Edwards the day off. 5 carries. Of course, he scores 2 touchdowns because he can't help but score.
Are you triggered?
I am super triggered. I was crying and coping the entire time he was scoring. But our colleague Zach Kruger actually, and he's the #1 Keaton Mitchell fan on the planet. So he's a Keaton hipster. Here's what he said. Here's what Zach said about the usage for Baltimore, backfield usage. Keaton Mitchell's last rushing attempt came with 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Justice Hill had 6 rushing attempts after that mark and pretty much finished up the game. I don't know what to draw from that, except for I would have expected the 3rd string running back to get those absolute garbage time touches in the backfield. And that appeared to be Justice Hill.
I think it really was the Ravens. They've needed this element in their backfield. It was kind of a one-dimensional backfield. They're having pretty good success with that one dimension, but Gus Edwards can't be your only running back option. And not that he wasn't. Justice Hill has been getting the ball, but they really just needed this change of pace element in their backfield. And I don't know what took them so long to unveil it, but yeah. I think it would make a lot of sense for it to remain a theme going forward. And it was just something that had been missing, not just in their backfield, but from their offense. They needed someone other than Lamar Jackson who could maybe pop a 20 or 30-yard run, because it's just not happening with Gus Edwards. It's also just not happening with Justice Hill. And maybe the rookie just wasn't ready, and that they saw something in practice last week. They decided he was finally ready, but I don't know why this role would go away like as suddenly as it appeared. And I think that, yeah, he's going to be involved enough to maybe get in the flex mix, but also just probably not a great flex option for week 10 against an elite defense in a game with a 37.5 game total.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's going to be completely boom bust. The Ravens are 1% below their expected dropback rate on the season. they've only had 2 pass-heavy games all year. So I do think that this has a good chance of devolving into a nightmarish 3-way committee.
Wow. Hey, wait in some positivity there on the people are here listening to the show, just taking some notes for waivers. And like they've liked most of what you said on Keaton Mitchell. And like Denny's like, just one more thing to say. Like, get the pen ready. Nightmarish 3-man committee. Lowers fab bid immediately.
Yeah, look, there is a universe where Keaton Mitchell doesn't do anything from here on out.
It actually is true. And Zach Kruger in absolute shambles. Sorry, Zach.
But there's also a universe where he gets 10 touches a game and goes berserk. Okay, because this guy is electric. This guy is Gus Edwards this is according to Zach. Zach's on it. Okay, Zach Kruger is on the Keaton Mitchell beat like nobody else right now. Okay, boots on the ground. He's actually at Raven Stadium right now.
Yes.
Tweeting from the field. They're dragging him off. The security's dragging him off. But he tweeted that that Gus Edwards has one 100-yard game in his life. One. Keaton Mitchell also has one.
NFL or life?
In the NFL.
He probably did in high school.
I'm guessing he had several 100-yard.
Maybe he probably did in college even too. But yeah, Keaton Mitchell, interesting guy to have around. The Raiders, Aiden O'Connell is an interesting guy to have around because anyone was going to be more interesting to have around than Carl Havoc, Jimmy Garoppolo, who just gave up on football in week 8. He'd had enough. Like I said, again, he just let the ocean waves take him. He didn't care what island he washed up on. He just needed off this beach. He needed a change of scenery, and he got it. He is on the bench. Aiden O'Connell is under center. We didn't get a representative look at what this offense is going to look like in week 9 because Daniel Jones tears his ACL. The Giants get humiliated. They had the kind of like the post Josh McDaniels emotional bounce too. Like it was kind of no way they were going to lose that game.
Yeah.
And they just steamrolled the Giants. But we're not going to get a representative look this week either, I feel like, because now they're playing this buzzsaw Jets defense, one that just held Justin Herbert to 0 production. And so I throwing out that we might not really get anything instructive for week 10. What do you think are going to be like the trends with Aiden O'Connell? Can he support Davante Adams? Can he support Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers? What is realistic to expect from Aiden O'Connell's Raiders?
I do think that we are looking at probably one of the run heaviest offenses in the league as long as Aiden O'Connell is under center. If you look at neutral game script against the Giants, I know it ended up being lopsided, but if you look at neutral pass rate, I should say, for the Raiders in week 9, 33% pass rate in neutral game script. Okay. So that is something. Okay. That is not nothing. They were 9% under their expected dropback rate against the Giants. This led to 37 running back carries, 26 of which went to Josh Jacobs. I think, Josh Jacobs has a pretty great chance of just being a pure volume monster from here on out. And folks, it's real bad for Davante Adams. Real bad.
Really? You really don't think that they can reconcentrate targets in the Alpha's hands? Like to someone who actually wants to be playing NFL football might help him. A coach who hates everything is gone, and Josh McDaniels, you really don't think there's any way back?
No. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I think if you have to start Davante Adams, that you're not going to get these 12, 15, 18 target games from him. You're going to hope that he can get home on 5 or 6 targets.
He could become a touchdown monster. I guess maybe we could hang our hat on that, or he could become almost like George Kittle used to be before he became so good at blocking, where he just scores like 2 touchdowns every 3 weeks. Davante Adams has done that plenty in his career. But will they trust Aiden O'Connell to ever throw in the red zone? Probably not. It's real bad.
It's not good.
Not good.
But if you have Josh Jacobs, you are feeling pretty good. Pretty good.
I will say, so they got the Jets this week. Then they have the Dolphins and Chiefs, who are solid defenses, especially the Chiefs. Like games where the Raiders aren't going to really have the benefit of turtle shelling. And the Raiders have their bye in week 13. By week 13, the fantasy season's almost over by then, we're going to at least have a pretty good idea of what this offense will be for the fantasy playoffs. And yeah, I hope you might not make the playoffs, of course, if you invested first or second round draft capital in Devontae Adams.
That's right.
But that's right. We'll end the show with, I had no idea you were the world's biggest Josh Dobbs fan.
Oh,
probably should have led the show with this then. Any change in our thoughts with the Vikings post Kirk Cousins offense? Now that we basically talked last week is like, listen, Josh Dobbs is going to get this job. And then it took like 5 throws and he got the job because of an unfortunate concussion, of course, for Jaren Hall.
Right.
But anything changed? Josh Dobbs, like all backup quarterbacks, the returns have a way of being diminishing. That happened in Arizona. He had an amazing start with Minnesota.
Yeah.
But is there hope with a really pass-happy offense, a really pass-happy coach, this elite passing game personnel, even without Justin Jefferson, that maybe with Josh Dobbs as the triggerman, that things might not be as bleak as we first feared when Kirk Cousins was injured?
Yeah, look, Josh Dobbs, we talked about this on the Sunday recap show. He had to learn the playbook during commercial breaks and between drives. You know, I mean,
like, he's trying to watch the Ghosts UK commercial. Like, I gotta study the playbook.
Ghosts UK.
That's a real CBS show.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. I did not understand that for a second, but then I remember seeing it and being like, what the hell is this? Yeah. So he did that. Kevin O'Connell called it one of the most impressive things he's ever seen in football. Josh Dobbs, super bright guy, has so much dog. I mean, just unbelievable. Never before seen dog levels. I do think that he has what it takes to keep the Hawkinson scam going. I think he can keep Jordan Addison alive. Look, they had their quarterback. The Vikings, here's how pass heavy these guys are going to be, okay? They can't help it. Their quarterback was learning the playbook during the game, and they were 1% over their expected drive. I mean, what? I was expecting, when I looked at that, I was like, oh, they had to be 10% under, maybe 15%. 1% over, okay? There's also, look, Josh Dobbs, he rushed 7 times for 66 yards.
Yes. And a touchdown.
Here are his recent rushing attempts. Okay. 7 against the Falcons, 6 against the Ravens, 7 against the Seahawks, and 7 against the Rams. He also has a game with 13 this year. So that's kind of exciting. I am a little bit bullish on the Josh Dobbs Vikings.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair take. And at least more bullish than we were if they had actually stuck with Jaren Hall. I didn't believe they were ever going to stick with Jaren Hall. Even if they hadn't acquired Josh Dobbs, it probably just would have been Nick Mullins then. But we have to be wary of that. The backups tend to regress very quickly as the book gets bigger. And there's a book out there in Josh Dobbs from the season, but totally different circumstances. It might take a little longer for him to cool off as a Viking. But that we have to guard against that. But like you said, Kevin O'Connell doesn't know how to do offense other than just passing, like absolutely crazy. And one of their top 2 running backs is now out for the year, of course, with another torn Achilles. So it seems like the pass rate will remain over expected, even with Josh Dobbs.
That's right. Yes, that's a good way of saying it. I mean, yeah, you're right about Dobbs. The regression will come eventually. He has 4 games this year with a completion rate of under 60%. We know what we're getting here.
We do know what we're getting. Unfortunately, you know what you're getting. That is no more of the Rotoworld football show today because it's over. We're out of topics. There's going to be a lot to talk about on Thursday when Kyle, Denny, and I preview the entire Week 10 slate. There's going to be a lot on the site all week. Big-time injuries, big-time question marks. We had James Conner coming back. Just Justin Fields coming back. Khalil Herbert coming back. It appears Khalil Herbert is coming back. He's practicing in full. So keep it locked to rotoworld.com. Keep it locked. Hey, Denny's going to be on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, folks. Keep it locked to that. We'll keep it locked to that before Friday. Denny's going to be there this Friday. He's going to be there this weekend. He's going to be trying to talk about analytics. Denny,
I'm gonna give it a try. They're actually giving me a sleeping bag. I'm going to be sleeping in the studio for this.
Wow,
over the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that too. Yeah, your travel budget has been reduced amidst the legal battle. They've had to fly you out for so many different hearings and stuff like that they no longer get you hotel rooms. So sleeping in the office. That's a nice office, though. I would sleep there.
I feel like an NFL coach, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping in the office. I'm unshowered. Matthew Berry's saying, God, this guy stinks,
I would sleep there. So check that out. Check out Denny later in the week. Check out the regression files. Check out my rankings. check us out on Thursday. For Denny, I'm Pat. Thank you for listening. We'll be back later.